Hi, this is Bonnie from DT Lavinia World, and if you've been watching the past previous videos, I have showed you how to color this background, and then I showed you how you can stamp various different designs. And this was the one that I had said I called when I considered I was going to bin it or throw it away, and then this was the other one that I created. So today what I wanted to show you is what you can do. You can always make them into cards, but what you can do if you want to alter a project. And so that's what I'm going to show you today. Usually I make a sample and then I go ahead and make a video, but today it's just going to be straight starting from the beginning and showing you what I do. This one's going to be a little bit more detailed because of the circle that, or the oval that I have cut out. So first of all, I'm going to go show you the box I'm going to be using. I got this from the charity shop, and it is a box. It's a wooden box, and it turned out to be the perfect size. But actually, I usually look for sizes that I know that I can use based upon the cards or the bases that I use. So what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be putting this on the top, and this one's a little bit, like I said, more detailed because of the oval. So I decided I wanted to make it so that this was up a little bit higher so that there was some dimension to it. In order to do that, I got some corrugated cardboard. It's just a box, a packing box, and I drew around the opening and I cut that out. I used a X-Acto knife, and I also used my scissors, and then I kept measuring to make sure that it wasn't going to show through the opening. So that was the first thing that I did. The next thing I did is this has to line up really well because of how it was stamped on the outside. And so I went ahead and lined that up the best I could, and then I penciled where it needs to be on the top of the box. So the first thing that I will do is I will Mod Podge this down so it'll be permanently down, and then I'll also Mod Podge this to the corrugated cardboard. But before I do that, I'm going to use some black paint or black gesso, and just so that that will be darkened and not show as much even when you look to the side. And then I'll go ahead and add this, but I'm going to go ahead and show you that and speed that up for you. Alright, so you saw me put the Mod Podge on top of this, and actually put it on and then put the Mod Podge on top. I also put the Mod Podge and secured the corrugated cardboard to the back of this one. So the next thing I wanted to do is I'm going to be putting the Mod Podge on the back of this, and then I'm going to be putting that on top. What I wanted to tell you is that the ink is water-based, and so is the Mod Podge. So you have to be really careful when you go to brush this on, because it will spread it a little bit. And so that's why I use a softer brush. If you use a harder brush, it tends to really drag it. But as you can see, it worked out okay, and it really didn't do much of any bleeding. That's what I wanted to say. It didn't do as much bleeding as what I thought it would. I'm going to still have to do that to the front of this one. Now, there's one thing I want you to know is that as I was making this paper, and I was sharing this in previous videos to show you how to make your own, Lavinia World is now carrying this paper already printed. So you can bypass making your own and you can still do this design, which is really, really nice. Because if you want to learn how to do the inking, it's great. But if you actually want this design, it is now available in the Lavinia World store. And I will have that link below. So my next step is I was really fortunate that this particular box had the gold around the outside, so there wasn't a whole lot that I had to do, but I am going to be adding a little bit of embellishment in terms of the size of distressing. I have decided that I'm going to go ahead and still use the oxide ink. It would probably have been smarter to have distressed the edges of this before I put it on, but I wasn't really sure how I wanted to go, so it's kind of like I do things as I go, and that was one of them. I'm also going to be using this wax. It is Art Alchemy, and it is Firebird. It is a little bit different color than the gold on the outside, and I'm also going to be using, like I said, Distress Oxide Black Soot. I always say soot, it's soot. And so I'm going to go ahead and do that, and I'm going to speed that up. So now that I have it distressed along the edges the way I wanted to, the next step for me would be to add the Mod Podge over the entire top to seal it. And like I said, be careful with whatever brush you use to make sure that you're not going to be moving the ink underneath around. So that's what I'm going to go ahead and do next, and I will make that go faster too. Okay, so I've let that dry, and you can see how that looks. It does, because it's paper, it does have a little bit of a slight wave sometimes to it, but it gives a little bit of character to what you've created. So what I like to do is whenever I do this, some people think that I make shaker cards, and what I do is a faux shaker look. And what I like to do is I like to take, it could be the accents, and I use the Mod Podge Dimensional Magic, but there's also glossy accents that you can use. It's just a clear glue, and what I do is I make it look like it is a shaker, but it's not. And all I do is I add some of this glue to the bottom, and then lots of times I'll just use seed beads, and it actually gives a really nice, I don't know, it just makes it kind of fun. But what I'm going to be using is, like I said, seed beads, and I've got some that I felt that coordinated with what I was doing. So what I do is I just take a little bit of these out and slowly drop them in. And if they move around, I come back in with my paper piercer and move the little beads to where I want them to be. And maybe I should get that a little bit closer so you can see how that looks when you go to add those to the bottom. And like I said, I'm going to add a little bit of a mixture. Oops, that one went rolling out of the way, and that's okay because afterwards I can just tip it over and dump them out. All right, so that's the green ones. They're kind of they're not really fluorescent, but it's a pretty green. And then this one's more like a copper rust. And I'm going to add a little bit of those as well. And I'm losing some of them, but that's kind of like what happens, and then I find them later. Okay, so that's a little bit of a mixture. And like I said, the way I play around with them to get them to be in the glue well is I just use this paper piercer. And I just slide them all over and pop them in. It's a little fiddly, but it works. And if I wasn't concerned about time and people watching, I just take my time and get them where I want them. So like I said, it makes it kind of fun. It looks like it's a shaker, but it's not. And you just keep adding more to fill that area in. And I think I'm going to add a little bit more of the brown ones there. Whoops. And yep, it's going to move. You can also use your finger. It's hard to get some of these little ones. So that's going to be the look. Then the next thing I did is I found that in my stash I had this Tim Holtz Ideology, and it is Halloween accents. And I thought they would work. I like to have a little bit of metal lots of times on my project, metal or wood. And these corners look like they would be perfect to be added. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to use that black gesso, and I'm going to put black gesso on them, and then I'm going to use a little bit more of the gold accents. So I'm going to, I don't know, here, let me pull that up. So that's my intention, that's what I'm going to do. So I'm going to put some black gesso on that, and then I'm going to come back with a little bit of that gold wax and add that to it. All right, I have these both painted with a black gesso, and I pulled out the wax again. And I did go around the edge of this with the wax also. And so right now I'm going to put a little bit of wax on this. I want to show you what happens when you do that. You just add a little bit, and it just highlights it with the gold. It's really, really pretty. See if I can get that so you can see how that looks. So that's what you do to both those pieces, and then you adhere them or you glue them on. I use again the Mod Podge dimensional glue, but you can also use the glossy accents or any other glue you want to, but they both work really well. So that's what they end up looking like, and they match really well with the whole box. This shows up really good with a black gesso. It works okay with the white gesso, but this really makes it highlight and gives the shadow because of the black in the background. And the black gesso is what helps adhere the wax. So that will be glued down, like I said, with the Mod Podge. So I'm going to go ahead and get that done, and then I'm going to show you the finished product, and we'll be done. So I have completed the box and how I'm going to be making it, and some of the things that I added to it was I had some gems I decided to go ahead and add to the wings, and I added a little bit of wax to the top of those gems. Then I also pulled out some of the Tim Holtz chain, and I decided to put some of the glossy accents or the Mod Podge dimensional around the outside of the frame, a cutout, and I added that to there. So that has completed like I said, the project. And I'm again going to show you, it is a box. And I'm thinking that eventually I am going to be creating the inside of this, with the inside of this box, with some of the new paper that is at Lavinia World. So that'll be for another video, another time. So just showing you a little peek for the inside. And I just would like to remind you to subscribe and share if you could. And remember that all of the products that I have used, I will have down below from the Lavinia World store. Thanks so much for stopping by.